regime. The aggressive and occupying regime of Iran, through its support for terrorism and threat against neighboring countries and world nations, regionally and globally, is attempting to expand its occupational policies and remain the sole cause of the conflict and instability in the region and the world. The direct and indirect intervention of the Iranian occupying regime in the affair of the regional countries and its warmongering actions in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Bahrain, Palestine, Gaza, and Israel have contributed to widespread insecurity, particularly in the Arabian Gulf countries. The Iranian terrorist regime, in its attempt to expand and to consolidate its occupational interference, urgently seeks to obtain nuclear weapons. Evidently, it has secretly engaged in an activity to develop atomic bombs. Recently, the International Atomic Energy Agency issued a statement demanding Iran to grant them access to its nuclear facility. However, the Iranian occupying regime refused and instead threatened to intensify its nuclear activity, raising both international and regional concerns. Consequently, last night, Israel launched an attack on Iran's military and nuclear sites in an effort to prevent or delay the terrorist regime's acquisition of nuclear weapons. The occupying regime of Iran, that only able to suppress and to use its force against unarmed and oppressed people, has been powerless in the face of the Israeli attacks by fleeing to hide in bunkers. Nevertheless, Israeli forces systematically succeeded in targeting the regime's several military leaders, while Israeli operations have been carefully focused on removing regime's military headquarters and ballistic weapon and nuclear sites to prevent Iran's acquisition of the nuclear weapon. As long as the Iranian occupying regime remain in power, it will continue to pose a threat to peace and security in the region and the world. Therefore, the Front of the Nations for Self-Determination of Iran, FNFSD, declares its visionary statement as follows. 1. The Front of the Nations for Self-Determination of Iran considers the Iranian occupying regime the main source of the war, conflict, insecurity, and instability in the region, particularly in neighboring Arabian Gulf countries, and strongly condemns Iran's intervention and belligerent policies. 2. The front declares that the Persian regime of Iran is seeking to establish so-called a Persian empire by aiming and striving to build nuclear weapons and to produce atomic bombs. If aggressive regime of Iran succeed to obtain nuclear bombs, there will occur even greater catastrophes in the region, especially against non-Persian nations under Iranian occupation as the first victim. And they will pay the highest price for their over 100 years of struggle for freedom, democracy, and sovereignty against Iranian regime. Because non-Persian nations not only refuse to cooperate but always resist against Iranian regime. It means the only world without Iranian terrorist regime will be the better place to live in peace. 3. The Iranian occupying regime tries to portray non-Persian nations' territories as an active participant in the war against Israel by launching missiles from these regions. The Front of Nations for Self-Determination strongly urge regional and global powers, especially Israel, to avoid targeting lands belonging to non-Persian nations. Doing so would only play into the Persian regime's propaganda and manipulation policies. 4. The FNFSD in its statement explains to the non-Persian nations that this war is not our war and we should not participate in it. Conversely, we must seize this opportunity to overthrow the occupying regime, expel the occupiers from our national territorial lands, and establish our own independent government. 5. The FNFSD calls on all sons of non-Persian nations under Iranian occupation, especially those who conscripted or serving in the regime's army or police, to abandon the Iranian regime's force and join their regional national resistance group to help liberate their people from Persian occupations. 6. The FNFSD also calls upon commanders and personnel of the army and security forces to separate themselves from the terrorist Persian regime while there is still time to join the rank of their people against regime. 7. The Front of Nations for Self-Determination support all IAEA resolution and other international resolutions against Iran and calls for their immediate implementations. 8. The FNFSD strongly believes that the only path to achieve peace and stability in the Middle East and the Arabian Gulf region goes through the immediate overthrow and crash of the terrorist regime of Iran, and to attain the liberation of the self-determination of non-Persian nations. The FNFSD urge all international and regional democratic communities to support the liberation struggle of non-Persian nations to help and guarantee peace and democracy in the region. Front of the Nations for Self-Determination of Iran, June 13, 2025. Thank you.